you've been live sitting there, by the way.
Minutes.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you.
Uh, we are live, by the way. Hey, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but that's when you go live. That's what happens. Eric, welcome to the podcast Drink Up.
Sam, thanks for having me. Hopefully I didn't do anything embarrassing there. Picking my nose or
Did you?
something.
You didn't even talk. You didn't say, "Hey, I'm Eric Martindale. I'm just sitting here waiting for Sam, who just disappeared on me." Was I frozen in the screen or what?
You just weren't there. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything.
A computer blew up. But welcome everybody. Before we get started, I had a couple call outs, if you don't mind, Eric, and then we can get into it.
Yeah.
I always call out Jay Williams with Freebird. Jay, if you're out there, I'm always calling you out again. I think this is week number 4. I'm out of product. I guess I need to go out in the wild and go buy some, so I'll go buy my own. But I love Freebird and love what you're doing. I saw your post of your coffee cup today. I'll try to go get one of those or just make my own. If you're cool with it, just give me the intellectual rights to go do it on your IP. I guess that's what you say. So also thanks Alicia Vargo from Bev Assets for your sponsorship and support. And then Adam Smith, who can't be here today. He apologizes, Eric and everyone, but he's out traveling in the great state of Arizona, I believe, but with Alias Advising. And let's get into it. So Eric, why the heck would you want to come on to Drink Up a podcast? We started with a rough start. 5 minutes in, I disappeared on you.
I don't know. I'm here to talk with my good friend Sam Anderson. I don't need a reason beyond that.
Well, I'd love to. Well, so a little history, everybody. So we actually, I don't know, it's about a year ago, I guess. It's been a while, but we had pancakes on the Sunday virtually. And we were talking about that this morning.
Yeah, to be fair, I didn't eat any pancakes, but I did make pancakes.
Yeah, he made it very clear that he doesn't have pancakes. But I was actually going to make some pancakes and bring them on, but out of respect for you and your diet, I did not do that. So I'm having green tea, and we were talking about energy shots, having energy shots. Yes. So I'm obviously all fired up. But welcome. Love to get into a little bit about you, if you don't mind, kind of who, what, when, where, why, like, who are you? What is it that you do? And then I'll have a lot of questions around that. I know what you do, but other people don't. I'm actually going to put you're the founder of the Elite Commerce Group.
Yeah, that's it.
And what does the Elite Commerce Group do?
All right. So we are a marketplace and retail media management agency. So you can look at marketplace as Amazon, Walmart.com, TikTok Shop. Retail media is essentially anything where you're using a digital platform to grow retail sales. So that could be Instacart, Costco Media, Whole Foods Media, Target Roundel, Walmart Connect, or whatever. So essentially, if you're selling online, we grow your sales online. If you're selling in retail, we use digital tools to increase velocity at retail.
So you do, like, I talk about this, right? Everybody gets distribution and they disappear. But once you get distribution, as they get employees, someone like you to actually activate that item on the shelf to pull it through the stores?
Yeah, I mean, it's a form of, really, it's a digital form of trade promotion. So if you were to take an account and you were to figure out what that account is worth to you, and then you take a trade promotion budget, you might take part of that budget and divide it up into shopper marketing, digital shopper marketing.
But you drive, we were talking about like Uber and DoorDash and those guys out there driving around, and someone like me sitting in a hotel and I forget something and I just go to DoorDash and have that person deliver. You deal with those folks as well, right? You drive those people into the stores?
Yes, sure do. So not the driver, we don't know what the driver does, but if you're shopping on DoorDash grocery, not necessarily DoorDash, the legacy platform, but if you're shopping on DoorDash grocery, we'll put up ads to make sure that shopper buys our client's product instead of their competitors.
So when I'm if I'm in like Del Mar, actually, this is a real story. I was sitting in my hotel room and I'm on a CPAP machine. And you don't want to put regular water in that CPAP machine, and you can't obviously fly with distilled water. So I needed distilled water, and I didn't feel like going out and getting an Uber because I didn't have a car to go get to the Walgreens. So I actually called, I think it was Uber Eats. And Uber Eats actually went in and I did a search, So I'm assuming you get those items placed on the search.
Yeah, you got it.
Got it. So
You got it.
I'm a fast learner. And why would you want to get your items placed on these type of organizations like DoorDash and Uber Eats? What's the benefit of doing that?
Well, you're there. You're already technically there. There's a kind of an old Amazon joke that we say when you, I guess it starts with a baseline of if you build a listing on Amazon, you go to page like 4 million. Nobody's ever going to see you there. So the joke is, where's the best place to where's the best place to hide a dead body? Page 2 of an Amazon search, because nobody ever goes there. So our job is you're already in the catalog. So if let's say you sell in Sprouts, you're going to show up on the DoorDash catalog. You're going to show up on the Instacart catalog. You're going to show up on sprouts.com. But we're actually going to use ads to make sure that you end up on the top row of search of those 3 platforms.
So there's thousands and thousands of items that just get lost in the scrolling. So it's like I'm always scrolling and I just like whole bit, but I do more search. Like I'm very like, I'm into watches. I think I told you that. So I'll go to like Alley and stuff like that. And I get like cheap Chinese watches, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I have a couple expensive ones, but I'm into like finding like the gems, right? Like what's the movement?
Yeah.
But I do anyway. That'd be a podcast for me and you talk about my watches, but I'm doing a search. So when you do a search, you pop up in a search too.
Yeah, and there's different levels of intent. So if you're shopping for something vintage like that, or you're collecting, you might go to multiple pages. You might put something into search 15 different ways. Most people, when they're shopping on Instacart, for instance, they're filling a cart. So like, I'm going to throw this in, that in, that in, that in. Top row placement is really important. Second row placement, if nothing else. Most people aren't going to fill an entire shopping cart by going to page, 17 of a search for every single item. So it becomes very important that you show up at the top of search.
So the Elite Commerce Group, so you have these items. I think you deal with a couple of people that I know. They're not clients, a couple of friends. I'm even allowed to say you deal with, so I won't say it. So like I have an NA product as an example. That's one of the products that you represent. And this particular item, and I think she's in Publix, she's in Walmart, she's done really well in Wisconsin and Minnesota. So I'm thinking you know who I'm talking about.
She's a killer, by the way.
Yeah.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
And she's been on the podcast, so I can say that much. But like, how do you so why does she need you? She's already in all those stores.
I mean, I'll tell you the way we usually engage with a brand. I think that would be the best way to answer your question. Brand comes in and says, all right, we're in Target retail, and our velocity is hurting right now. So what can you do? And then we'll break out the tools that are available and say, look, you can triangulate. There's actually 3 ways to drive digital traffic to Target, which happens to have very high level of digital penetration. So those platforms are very expensive. I'm sorry, they're very important. They are also very expensive, but Target Roundel is getting more expensive, but Target Roundel is one. You can assign a budget to Target Roundel and drive traffic through target.com and the Target app. Then you can assign budget at Instacart. There's a couple of different considerations, but now DoorDash, you can actually, this is something recent as of this summer, you can isolate Target through DoorDash, through display. That's generally what we do. And then again, we run ads on those platforms. So we'll work with the founder to come up with budget. We'll estimate the number of turns that we think we can get per platform. And then we manage those ads for them.
So conversion, velocity, and reorders. Talk to me about those 3 things.
Yeah.
So what you do for the brand, and this just stay focused on the particular brand I was talking about. When she came on to your platform, like what was the conversion? Like, did it go up dramatically? Did the reorders go dramatically up, the whole bit? Because I'm sure she takes that information and goes back and talks to the clients about her wins, because you're driving velocity, right? I mean, that's your tag. I think you talk about it. You talk about velocity.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole purpose. These things really are not sales channels. Amazon is a sales channel. TikTok Shop is a sales channel. Walmart.com is a sales channel. Retail media are their tools. Now, I would say if you have a lot of distribution and you're doing well and you're turning well, you have good velocity, you can treat DoorDash you can treat a lot of these like sales channels. You can do them, profitably. You can make sure that every single unit you push out the door has a certain amount of profit in it. And these things can be done with formulas. You have a lot of control if you do them right. But most challenger brands need to turn a number of, SKUs per door per week to stay on the shelf. And that's most of what we do is we're making sure that we do at least a little bit of that. We carry a little bit of the water there. So a brand might come in and say, I need 4 turns per SKU per door per week. And I'm at 3. Not every retailer, of course, reports that way, but some of them do. And then I'll say, all right, well, this is what you're going to need. This is the budget that I think you're going to need to do that. That's a lot, actually. 25% of the turns you need through a digital platform is a lot. It can be done, but it's a big lift.
Interesting. So, I sat with Walmart 3 times or 2 times this past year, and they went over their turns for the different categories and what they expect. So, 4 turns is a turn a package. Like, so if it's a 4-pack or it's an item, that's a turn. It's
one sale. Yeah. I mean, it depends on the unit of sale. So obviously some things go in as a single item. Sometimes they go in as a 4-pack or a case or whatever, but not, how it is. Some stores go by GMV, like Costco. They'll say you need, this dollar amount per week, per club per week. Others go by turns. Others don't say anything. Some of them don't even tell you what they need, but we do the best we can with what we have, with the numbers we have. And you put it that way because we try to do it by the math versus saying you need to spend $10,000 a month on Target Roundel. What we try to do is say, how short are you? What do you need? And if they know what they need, then those 2 numbers should talk to each other, goals versus, what spend and what we're actually
so
driving.
If you say, hey, this is what I need, and this is like, well, this is what I can do and help you get what you need. And by the way, this is what the retailer wants to see. And if you solve for that problem, the client wins, the retailer wins, and your services provide those 2 wins. So a couple questions are coming in. So first of all, Jay says, I don't see Freebird on the shelf behind you, Eric. Disappointing. I'm like, Jay, the beginning, I messed up in the beginning, but here's Freebird. I'm out of product if you're still on watching us, by the way. And I saw Eric had a nice t-shirt on while he was working out. And I saw the coffee mug this morning. I guess I can go to www.freebird.com to go talk. Alicia says hello. Robert Kogan is on the line. Let's see what Robert says. Okay, he goes, last Amazon order, Freebird, El Jefe, Be Amazing, Belvita. It's already at the Michigan address waiting for me next week. And then Robert has a question. Have you helped brands in the Canadian realm of Amazon, Costco, Walmart?
100% of those. Yes. Yes, we have. So that it can be done. I would say from what I've picked up, I think Canadians use, let me back up. The shopper you're targeting is either delivery, somebody who types in their order online and they're getting the order shipped to their house, or not shipped to their house, but brought to their house by a driver, or somebody that's having it staged at curbside. So my experience, what seems to be clear is that Canadians use that a little bit less, but we absolutely have we've worked Costco through Instacart. We've worked other retail through Instacart. We've worked Walmart. We've worked tons of Amazon. I mean, most of our US brands have Amazon Canada accounts.
Okay, cool. And there's a couple other comments. Make sure I call out everybody here. All your friends are showing up. Eric, you need to come on the show as a co-host with us. I try and host because everybody shows up when you're here. The man, Duncan, the dream team is in the house. Thank you, Duncan. Calling him out. I see. And then Jay has a question or a statement. It's kind of risky here. He goes, I think we were talking about pancakes earlier. He goes, Eric, if you're allowed to just eat one thing for the rest of your life, what would that be?
I mean, it's not going to be what you think. It'd probably be barbecued buffalo ribs. Like not buffalo style, but like off of a buffalo.
So that needs this Friday night. I don't know if I looked last night. Did you do the Friday night steak post? Is it the steak post on Friday night with the?
No, I don't think I did. I don't.
You usually do a steak post every week.
Yeah, somewhere in there. It's I like to spice it up. We'll throw whenever the steak's on it. It comes right out to LinkedIn.
It does, man. I think that you get a lot of impressions from your steak posts. I think you've convinced all your friends out there. Duncan now does food posts now too, so he follows your lead.
I think we're driving up the cost of steak nationwide. maybe even a little bit.
For that.
Yeah.
We should have started out with steaks, but I'll stick with pancakes here, if you don't mind. Let's talk about. We were talking about this earlier about founders and about brands and services, and I'm really curious on your journey. So, how long have you been doing this? And I saw a pretty authentic post that you did. Like, I think you lost it all, and then you had to reinvent yourself. You had to let go of people, the whole bit. Like, to reposition yourself a few years ago.
Well, yeah. So we didn't really lose it all. Like it wasn't like a bankruptcy or anything. But I had this massive account, and I guess back to your first question, how long have I been doing this? I started this while I was still active duty in the Marine Corps. So I had the regular Marine Corps experience, but my last 3 years I spent at the University of Pennsylvania. So it was very busy, but I wasn't deploying for the first time in, the last 15 years. So I started a business. It was an import business. From that time, that I went right onto Amazon super early on just to move some volume. And then Amazon was an evolution from there. So 2012 was the first time I sold on Amazon.
So you were an
and then
importer selling on Amazon.
Yeah, I started importing, and then I needed to move a certain amount of volume I couldn't move, and turned to Amazon, and just like that, it was like, this is my jam. This is, at the time there weren't as many tools, so there's a lot of things you had to figure out. Advertising was brand new on Amazon. I think that came out in maybe 2011. So it was a brand new thing. And I was like, this is it. Right now you can go on and there's thousands and thousands of YouTube videos. There wasn't a ton back then. I remember I found a book by Chris Green, read that book, and I was like, I'm going to figure this out. And then since that time, it's just been, so you talk about pivots. Businesses is a series of pivots. There have been so many twists and turns. And I think the second part of your question, not to
No,
ramble
keep on going.
but
This is good.
Yeah. And we were doing a couple of different things by 2022, including agency management.
So you had to pivot, what, in 20 or 22 you pivoted?
Oh, end of 2022.
Okay, you did. So you went in, you created this importing business. You were in the Marines, but you're at Pennsylvania, and then all of a sudden, this big client, you learned all this stuff. This big client kind of dissipated, and then you did a pivot in 22. I just want to get it in my head here, make sure I'm paying attention.
Yeah, we helped. We were doing a lot of things. There were really three kind of silos in the business, and we helped build a marketplace for a big retailer, and we were managing that, and they just halted it immediately and had no idea why. And then they ended up filing for bankruptcy. They didn't tell us that. So I had all kinds of people tied up in that. I had a lot of revenue coming through that. So, they talk about key account risk. And if I was a really big company, I would have just cut all my expenses associated with it. But I had a lot of payroll wrapped up in it. And I did not let people go easily. So we basically, I had to let some go. Money just poured out of the business. It was crazy. It went from like the best year so far to just money just pouring out of the business. So that pivot you're talking about, there are probably lots of pivots, but it wasn't so much like we just stopped doing one thing and started doing another, but we lost one of the most important verticals in the business, and had to really, really drive hard into agency. Blew agency up in like 3 months. I mean, it was crazy. I was contemplating bankruptcy at the time. Didn't end up having to do that. Did have to let some people go, but we took the agency activity we had and just blew it up. I mean, it was kind of a Hail Mary. I call it the pivot of the century, but we did it, and here we are, stronger than ever.
That's awesome. I mean, it's funny. I've been an entrepreneur for 3 years. My partner's been one for 20. And I feel like we are pivoting constantly. Not like, we have a clear destination where we're going. We have a clear mission on what we have to do and roadmap in order to get there. We know our what's and how's and whys. We're very clear on that. But the reality is, and being that you're a Marine, and I'm not sure what type of Marine you were. Were you infantry? I don't know what you call it. And were you like a war Marine? Were you a back office Marine? I don't know if there's different types of Marine. There's probably only one Marine, sorry. But my point is
So,
there's strategy involved. And I think the
yeah.
strategy is to pivot. I think you have to pivot constantly, don't you?
I mean, you're
Yeah.
evolving, right? I mean, I think both of us work with physical products
Yeah.
brands, particularly CPG. Look at the pivoting they do. It's constant. It's pivoting in the way they finance the business, the way they capitalize the business, the way they sell, the retailers they're in, the way they source. I think, that's why I kind of say and take pivot sort of tongue in
Yeah.
cheek, because you just
Yeah.
evolve. It's just
So
business.
within your business, so what has been your greatest success that you want to share with everybody, and your failure?
Boy. So probably our biggest success is we're almost entirely inbound. We don't sell hardly at all. We have a newsletter and LinkedIn and referrals, and that's it. So we're growing faster than I can stand it. So I think that is probably our biggest success, is figuring out inbounds, figuring out how to get business coming to us.
Yeah, because there's probably missed
Biggest
opportunities
failure.
with those inbounds, right? You're so busy that there might be the golden ticket or something in there, the a golden nugget, a gem that's just sitting there. You just didn't see it. I'm assuming.
You mean by not doing any
Or no,
outbound?
by not, like, maybe there's inbounds that if you can't get, do you get to all your inbounds? Do you talk to every single one of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will say I've definitely dropped some. We've definitely dropped some where we just probably couldn't get to people, but I take every call. If it's worst case, let me put it this way, probably 60% of the people we talk to, I kind of turn away in a way, not like you're not big enough, but more like, I don't think this is going to be a win for you. I don't think what you want is going to be a win. So I don't look at that as a miss or a loss. I think, if somebody's coming in and they're, whatever their situation is, some kind of way where I think this is, you don't have the capital that you need for Amazon in your space right now. Come back when it looks like this. Or sometimes what I like to do is, I think you can do this yourself. And I think it's a bigger win if you start yourself for the next year. Maybe if we were a little bit more deliberate or wanted to, we could sort of have like in services, they call it downselling, but I think I'd rather just make sure everybody that came in, it was just a clear win. Like I don't want the 6-month turnover. I'm looking for the same thing I think the brand is, somebody we can work with for years or forever.
Yeah.
And both be happy.
What are your agreements? Are they like a year long, month to month? How does that work? Or it just depends on the client? And you don't have to answer, by the way.
Yeah. Well, no, we're month
Yeah.
to month. We haven't locked anybody into an agreement for a certain amount of time ever. So if we're not doing what a brand needs done, they're free to
That's
go.
interesting. That's actually really good.
Our
Good
retention.
for you for doing that. So we talked about your success, the inbounds. What's been your failure?
I don't know, Sam. There's so many. I don't even know. First thing I thought when you asked that is, oh God, what a long list I got to go through.
Business failure first, and we go to personal failures.
God, there's both. There's so many of both. They say to hire slow and fire fast. I have not fired fast. And so at the same time, I'm unwilling to give a brand like a bad experience. So I end up picking up the slack for people for way too long. And that's been a failure. I think there's, and I've gotten better at it. I get better all the time. I happen to be like a compassionate person. I've learned this the hard way, but we've stayed on with brands that weren't paying for way too long, thinking, again, trying to be compassionate and thinking, well, it is such a hard game. That's what I think for brands growing a business. It is such a hard game. Like, you can be well capitalized today, and 6 months, it's a different picture. So I've gotten to the point where, I have so many brands in the portfolio that aren't paying that I'm like moving money around to make payroll. I think that's the problem with that, is not that I feel bad about doing that with the brand, but I think that there are brands that are gutting it out to pay you every month, and they need to be prioritized. They need to be taken care of.
I totally relate with everything you just said. Is my greatest failure is not knowing when to let go.
Yeah. That's it.
And my partner talks to me about this, Alicia Colorado. She's like, Sam, the universe is going to put you exactly where you need to be. And and he goes, I'm enjoying sitting back and watching you go through this situation, going through this. He's just like rooting me on. And I'm like hanging on to this thing, right? For maybe this client or whatever. And she's like, she knew 6 months ago I should have let go of the client, but I hang on and the whole bit. So that, so I appreciate that. So the next question is what is the difference between success and failure?
I think it's giving up. If, let's say, what's the difference between success and failure? If you ask me that right now and you ask me what my biggest failures are, I can enumerate 50 of them. In fact, when you ask me that, I just want to keep throwing them at you, but you're asking me at a point in time. So what does that look like in my personal series of micro pivots or my evolution a year or 5 years or 10 years from now? And hopefully I'm at the point where I can identify my failures, business or personal, and I'm working through them, getting better and better and better. The alternative is I can give up, or I can refuse to change, or refuse to improve, or refuse to own up to things. And then it becomes a failure. It's not ever going to become a success. But I think every one of us can say anything that you can take as a success, it came behind a series of failures and adjustments and improvements.
So it's made you a better business person, a better man, a better human, going through those trials and tribulations, I'm assuming. And those failures actually make you ultimately reach your success. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I think failures become success,
Yeah.
right? So like, for instance, in 2022, I definitely had a lot of people were like, shut this thing down. And that I would probably have to look at it now, had I done that, as, okay, you failed at this business. That was a failure. And that was a really hard time. A lot of sleepless nights, sitting on the edge of my bed, being like, I have to let this person go. Or to the point of saying, I know we can't make it like this. I can't make it with more money flooding out of the business every month than is coming in. And it would have probably been easier at the time to just be like, shut it down, start over. But I would have to look at that as a failure now. And that's okay. There's lots of ways to start again. I kind of gutted it out. And I feel like I know we're in a better place now than we ever have been. This will be our best year ever. So I think those times where right now I can say there's a failure. I had too much key account risk. Yeah. I was using that. Even removing that key account exposed some things that were unhealthy in the business. Like it was bringing in too much it was bringing in so much bottom line that the rest of the unhealthy things were just getting overlooked.
The Costco dilemma in our business. If you get Costco, it's great, but it's like heroin and crack. If you lose it, you're dead.
Yeah.
Once you have it, it's hard to let go of it because Costco is so big in our business. So I'm like, be careful if you want to dance with the devil, man, because they do so much business that you're relying on one account. If I heard you correctly, and if there's key account risk, and I can relate to that. I was in national accounts for several years, and I only had one account in one of my jobs. It's like, well, if super value goes down, I go down with super value. And guess what went down? Super value went down. And guess who went down? I went down because super value went down.
Wow.
Right? There's no one to call on, no more to sell cereal to. Well, okay, what do you do? Where do you go? Right. So, and you ride that ride. So I very much appreciate that. So what keeps you going? I think I could guess the answer, but this persistence, perseverance, what keeps you going? You've lost clients. You've had to reinvent your business. What keeps you going?
That might be kind of an existential question, but I tend to be a very, very driven person anyway. I always have been. But I think, underneath all of it, I grew up very poor. My family was very poor, and it was kind of like, I was just born into this really bad situation, lots of bad decisions in the family, parents, grandparents. And I probably, as a young kid, I was like, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm not going to be like them. And it's, you can do well for yourself as an individual, but I really want to reset that for my family line. Like I have kids in this world, and I want them to be not given everything, but set up for success, like to have that kind of really backstop that I never had. As a kid, I didn't have, we are trying to put food on the table. So when it came time for college, there was no help for anything like that. Just, I wanted to be different for my kids. So I don't want to just do well for myself. I want to reset that whole family balance. And that means my mom who's still living. And that means my siblings and people like that. So the builder, I think by my DNA, or I would say because of that past, I think I'll just always be that way. But that's probably the engine underneath all of it.
Yeah. So you want to, I mean, it's funny. I relate to that because I ask myself what keeps me going, and it's my family. And looking at my grandkids, my son, my 2 daughters, my wife, my dogs, I want to give them a better life than I had. And then I think the other thing is when I look back on my family history and I look at some of the folks in my background, there was a lot of people that were entrepreneurs, and I never was.
Mm.
I always tell people this story. I didn't become an entrepreneur because I wanted to. I became an entrepreneur because I had to.
Yeah.
A very clear distinction here. I never advocate to become an entrepreneur. Now, if I could tell my younger self this, I would have done it a long time ago, but it is scary. It is hard and the whole bit. But the reason I did it is because I had to put food on the table. And just to answer back, what keeps me going is I want my son and daughters to see that, because in life, it's a roller coaster, man. You have good days, you have bad days, and you just got to pick yourself up and you got to keep on going. And I know it's easier said than done for a lot of people, and there's a lot of people hurting out there, and but you know what? You just got to open up the door, walk through it, and keep going. And that's why I answered the question. So I very much appreciate that, Eric. I want to step back a little bit and talk about how we met. So I met this guy named Brad Champion.
Oh,
Or
Brad.
you
Yeah.
introduced me to Brad Champion.
Yeah.
I don't know how we met. You know what? I think you introduced me to Brad. I think that's the reverse of that. But it's really interesting is, Brad Champion's an entrepreneur. Wayne talks to him quite a bit, like a product like that, not to get into Brad's product, but, Wayne was telling me that, Brad has a lot of inventory and he's going door to door, store to store, selling his product. How do you help someone like that? Not just calling Brad out, but this is a guy that has a dream, pretty cool product, that he has called a Waste Light. Really cool, by the way. But how do you help someone like that?
I buy that product regularly.
I can
So
tell
I'm
you're
like
looking
never
good,
out
by
of,
the way.
and of it. I'm blushing. So, there's a number of ways. I don't work with Brad. I know Brad. He's an awesome guy, has an awesome product. The way you would probably help somebody like that out is Amazon, or, there's things like Google ads, but I think Brad's doing the right thing the way he's doing it now. I think that should probably be doing exactly what he's doing right now. And then there comes a time where the same retail media, Amazon, that can all work for him as well.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking about him yesterday, and I came across a product called Bee's Knees, which is a cannabis product out of Utah. And they're well financed, and we may or may not do something with them. Hoping we'll do something with them. But anyway, they snap it in a drink, right? So it snaps in, right? So it's an additive, just like Brad. You snap it in, the whole bit.
Yeah.
And I asked you that because maybe, offline, you and I can, we can talk about those products, but we definitely can help someone like Brad. But, we're a retained agency, right? So if you want us to sell it, plus, to like place that into, liquor stores, we can probably put that in distributors to take it on.
Yeah.
And then place it on counters. I mean, we sell gummies, for heaven's sakes. Anything that goes into an adult beverage place where people are buying adult things, we probably can go sell it. But I was just curious because I do think there's a path with what I do and what you do.
See that, and that's, Sam, that's kind of where you had asked that question before about, do you wish you could take every brand that comes to you? And this is what happens all the time. A brand will come in and say, can you help me with X? I think Waste Light belongs with you. You know what I mean? Like, that's the type of clothing that brand needs. Probably not Amazon right now. I think Amazon's a distraction. that needs to be in every liquor store in the
Yeah.
country.
Based on his message, I should probably just pick up the phone and call Brad and have a conversation and see how he's doing, because Wayne's been dealing with him. But it was interesting because there's a lot of brands like Brad's,
Yeah.
that are
Yep.
looking to drive, distribution, to drive reorders, which drives velocity at the end of the day. And
Yep.
if he can get that, then he can continue to scale his product. I think people start to test, they build, they scale, and they sell, right? But how
Yeah.
you and I help them, our businesses, we're boots on the ground, inside distributors, inside customers, inside accounts. And you're like, well, I'm doing that. I'm more like the push. I believe you're more of the pull. Would that be a good scenario?
Yeah. 100%. Yep. They're just trying to get, and there's, to be fair, there's lots of ways to drive velocity. There's lots of in-store stuff. This is, one of many, but I think it's probably the most flexible and controllable. You can, you have a dashboard. If you can figure out how to use it, most of them are pretty simple. The reporting is very straightforward. You spent this much, you drove this many sales, you can turn it off, turn it on. But digital tools are some of the tools in the basket,
Yeah.
not all of
I have
them.
a client out of Idaho, and we have one of his brands called Frankie's, which is bourbon, gin, and vodka, really good price. And he's driving out with us, so we're his sales leads. So we're going out and finding distribution and customers for him. That's our mission, right? But he has a whole other DT or direct to consumer business. It's all online, and it's all like men's health stuff that he's focused in on. And they do like $1 million a month off that business. Yeah, I
Oh,
have to
wow.
actually, I have to
Wow.
introduce you to him. You probably know who he is, but it's just really interesting, right? Not every product is going to start with you or start with me. It could be it starts with you, then me, or it starts with me, then you, or I guess if they're, they can start with both. But I do think that without e-commerce and without what you do, a product today can't be successful. I don't see how it happens. Even I talk about the turtles and the hares. We're turtles. We go and get one account, one display, one case, one account at a time. And we do over the course of time. But the turtles aren't going to drive the velocity and the pull through. We're just not, right? I mean, I don't know if you want to share if I'm a turtle out there and what are you going to help? I think you sit somewhere above us turtles in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, or with us. You just have a role in the game to get it going. What does that look?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just complementary. We don't get a brand into stores. We have some brands that come to us every time they approach a buyer, and there's certain data that we give them every time. Some brands that we work with on lots of different channels we've been with for years will download their Amazon data and make a pivot table and send that with them to buyer meetings, so you can tell, like, hey, you've got the Northeast, you're crushing it in the Northeast. Here's all the sales you're doing in the Northeast. We'll do a retail media plan, but I can't get a brand into a single door ever.
Yeah.
Not one. And get them on Amazon. So the way, I always say we help brands grow digitally, but it's just a complement to what.
Yeah. So we
doing.
get the doors, and you get the you get the consumer to come in those doors.
We try to grow the door.
doors.
We try to grow them in the doors they're in.
Got it.
Essentially, and that can help them get additional doors, right? So like Costco. So you're doing a rotation. This is a huge one for us. Club, growing a brand in club, help them grow in club. They get a rotation coming up. They need, $1,500 per club per week. We have a formula, but this is how much you'd have to budget. Can't guarantee it from our end. We can't drive all the velocity they need. So if there's nothing happening in store without Instacart, you're still going to be in trouble, but we can drive a lot of it. And then as you get into that rotation, we can start to adjust it based on your, Costco is really good about reporting. So we can start to adjust it. Now, hopefully that rotation results in another bigger rotation, or another SKU and another rotation, or 2 regions next rotation. So you can kind of play that Costco growth game. Everybody wants to be a core item. They're not all going to be, but you can certainly you can certainly kind of play that game. You can do it in Sam's and BJ's and
So I'm
any of
going
the
to
clubs.
pivot again. So the retail battle, the stuff you post, you have a picture of like Amazon, Costco, BJ's, all these folks, Walmart. So you talk about this quite a bit. Can you explain to people kind of what you see coming, or kind of what's currently, and what you see coming and how they're going to get there? What is happening in the retail landscape? You post this like a few times a day, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I would say that Walmart is just an absolute monster. They're one of the leaders in AI development. That's not something you would see in the press, but Walmart is coming in hot, and there is actually a battle. I don't know if Jay's still on, but he always gives me a hard time about being dramatic. But those two are battling it out hard, and in the process of them battling it out, they're crushing everyone else. So you look at some of the trouble Kroger has had. Some of that's their own doing. Some of that is just Walmart and Amazon just duking it out. They're making each other better and better and better. So I think, a world where there is some kind of retail primacy, among just a couple of retailers, I think that is coming quickly. I think Kroger and Albertsons are going to be in a lot of trouble if they don't figure something out. The other is AI, and everybody likes to, AI. Everybody's an expert. I get it. And everybody's throwing around the term, but who controls or whose AI gets between you as a shopper and the product is an absolute battle. You can see it where Amazon just kind of dropped the gauntlet or threw down the gauntlet, I guess you'd say, with Perplexity, and said you're not gonna be involved in our marketplace.
So they push Perplexity out of Amazon, or Amazon.
I don't know that. I just saw an article on it, and I didn't get a chance to read through it. But there's a little bit of a battle between Perplexity and Amazon. But now you have ChatGPT, who's made an agreement with Walmart, and you're going to be able to shop on ChatGPT and then have through a couple of clicks check out with Walmart and have something delivered to your house.
I don't even go to
right
I
now,
don't go to Google anymore. I go to ChatGPT and ask it questions, and it goes.
Yeah, and it's not just you. It's that so many people right now are like, oh, but it's such a small part of search against Google. Its rate of growth is shocking, absolutely shocking. So the big question is, when you talk about like what's coming, when you ask ChatGPT, when you start doing your actual shopping in ChatGPT, is it going to bring up? What retailer? Is it Walmart or Amazon? And then which brands in those retailers? That is the question of the century right now. That's the biggest question. Who's going to control that, and what levers will we have? And we don't know the answer right now.
Interesting. I think what came to my mind is Blockbuster versus Netflix right now in this conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, but I'm saying is Google's always done what Google does, right? And Yahoo, think about Yahoo versus Google. Now it's Google versus AI. Is Google going to be relevant?
I don't know. I don't know, but I think, again, we went through an era where I think small business was favored, 2010 to 2020, 2022. You had all these new tools. You had Amazon, and you had Meta, and then TikTok, and the big CPGs, big business got their lunch eaten. They got their rear ends handed to them because they didn't understand all these tools. And all of a sudden, all these young businesses had all this opportunity and had all these levers to pull. I think we're headed right now in the opposite direction, where it's, unfortunately, unless something changes, and I hope it does, I think we're in a consolidation era. I don't like that, but it seems to be the case. And people are going to go to, like, you look at social media and how fast TikTok is growing over the other platforms. I think, unfortunately, industries seem to be consolidating toward big business right now.
So if I'm a consumer, I'm not going to see the small shop that could have some cool stuff like I used to see in Amazon, right? The big guy's going to pop up. They're going to be like you said, you move them up in the search engines, right? So the people that have the money to promote are going to move up the line and how they promote. And even in chat, which is crazy. I was challenging chat the other day, having a conversation with it, and I called BS on him or whatever it is. I said, as I was asking him about watches again, I said, okay, compare a Rolex to this watch in China that has this movement, this glass, this type of steel, and tell me that Rolex is better. And it still kept on saying Rolex is better. And I said, what you're saying is Rolex is better because of the name, not because of what it is, because side by side, it has everything the Rolex has. Now the movement, Rolex makes some really damn good movements. I got a Submariner. It's pretty darn good, right? But I mean, I can get everything that Rolex has versus this, but at some point, I'm probably not going to see this over here because Rolex and Omega, they're just going to swallow it up and push those guys out. So the majority of the consumers that aren't savvy enough aren't going to be able to find it. Is that what you're saying? That this consolidation?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there are no tools that are, big business isn't left out of anything anymore. They were left out of, it was kind of like when Instagram came out, big business said, oh, that's just a bunch of millennials. They don't have any money. Millennials were teenagers at the time, and they were like, they don't have any money. But millennials got it. So when they started businesses, they started using tools like that. Big business isn't, they're not left out of anything anymore. They're using all of these things. They're using TikTok, and make no mistake, when ChatGPT monetizes positions in search in some way, and that's coming, that'll probably be early 2026. Business is not going to miss that.
Well, yeah. Good. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just think the era of we're the only ones who know about this is coming to
It's
an end.
interesting. So I'm part of a company called Regami, and Regami is about bringing the virtual world to the real world. So where these big businesses, where I think people are missing, Eric, is a lot of the consumers you think you're talking to aren't there. They're not on Facebook. They're not on Instagram. They're not on the TV, by the way, but they're putting a disproportionate amount of their advertising on these channels, and they don't exist there. So where they exist is on their phones. And if you think about Pokemon Go, is where a lot of that world is.
Yeah. Metaverse. Yeah. That's a big one. That's a big one that's coming too. It got overshadowed by AI, but I mean, there's a lot of business going through Roblox and Pokemon Go and a lot of those, and we look at them as games, but they're
Yeah, we literally have the ability to go out and basically go treasure hunt. So you think about Costco, right? And you go to Costco, you're gonna every time you arrive every weekend, there's something different on the floor. It's like, oh wow, I didn't see that shirt. I want that or whatever, and it's branded. But same thing as you drive this traffic into the stores because they're looking for the golden ticket, and that's what Origami does. Very early stage, but it is the metaverse. But if you click in there, you're basically you're in the metaverse, but you're actually out in the real world. You get out from outside your computer, you go talk to humans, you go find things. I think that's an opportunity for our businesses. The whole bit. To wrap up, we have a couple more minutes here. First of all, how do people find you?
LinkedIn, Eric Martindale, or Eric at EliteCommerceGroup.com or EliteCommerceGroup.com.
Okay, so Elite Commerce, I'm typing it in here, .com, and commerce.
EliteCommerceGroup.com.
Let's see, I'm going to pull it up here and see if this is right here. Is that right? Yeah, so that's how you find you. And then what would you want to leave everybody with? Did we miss anything in our conversation today that you want to share with folks that took their Saturday to join us for the last hour that you want to share?
No, not necessarily. I would just say this is my opinion. Everybody we kind of left this on AI and where's the industry going? Where's the world going? And I think we need to do things in a very surgical way at this point. I am huge on finding frontiers. What is the place with the lowest competition density? Retail media, it's still relatively low. A TikTok shop, it's still relatively low, but it won't stay that way. And I find that these frontiers are closing faster and faster and faster. And with that said, given the fact that we have these big companies Amazon is no secret anymore. It'll be the biggest retailer in the world this year. When we get the books, the end of the year, Amazon will finally beat Walmart. It's going that direction, but there's still opportunity there. But everything now today, anything that's done in digital has to be executed with surgical precision. The days of slinging things around and, throwing money at something are over. They really are. There might be a new platform and it stays a frontier for 6 months. But at this point, if you're going to do something, I would say either don't do it or do it with surgical precision, especially in digital. If you can't do it, sometimes things are the right answer, but they're not the right answer right now. So if you can't resource something the right way, you're better off doubling down on what you can resource correctly.
That's a lot to unpack. I think if I understand, like, don't try to be everything to everyone. I always say go an inch wide and a mile deep versus a mile wide and an inch deep is kind of the same way you're saying. Be very precise about where you're going.
Yep. And that's I like the way you just kind of captured that. Another reason that we tell brands, I don't think this is a good idea, is everything is a good idea, but you can't afford everything right now. The best idea is the revenue that's right in front of you. The thing you can turn into, you can turn widgets. Double down on that until you can't, and then go on to the next thing instead of trying to do everything.
Do you know who Carbless is? Adam Corner, Carbless, the product.
I know the product, but I don't know him.
So I got the pleasure. I've talked to him for several years, but we finally met live at MBWA this October. And his business model is just that he focused on one community, community, went to the next one, won that community, went to the next one, that community. Then he got the city. Then he got city by city, community by community. Then he got the state. And he did it one at a time. And he focused on what he had, not what he didn't have. And he sat in front of one of my clients and he actually asked the guy why he was at MBWA. He said, "Why are you even here?" He goes, you haven't even begun to win New Jersey.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? IQ bar. I mean, look at what they did on Amazon before moving into retail in a meaningful way. Do something, do it with surgical precision, own it, dominate it. And look, there is some key account risk there in the beginning. But that's the sort of thing you do in the beginning. You assume that risk in the beginning so that later on you don't have to. Then you own something, you do it right, take it as far as you can at the time, and then when the time is right, go on to the next thing, versus saying, I need to be on TikTok Shop and retail and Amazon and Walmart.com, all at the same time.
I love that's a great way to conclude the messaging to everybody. I've had clients like, your rep needs to do 100 pods of 100 points of distribution, 100 cases in Tampa a month. I'm like, I think that should be the goal for the year.
Yeah.
If you're everywhere, you're nowhere. I think you said that. If you're everywhere, you're nowhere, because if you can't support what you have, why are you there? And a brand called Sukasa Mikasa, I don't represent him, but he said something to me. He goes, we want to be in places that support us. If they support us, we'll support them. If they put us on the menu, they give us a drink feature, then we'll support that. But if they're just taking a bottle in for a favor, I don't want to be there.
Yeah, no, agreed.
Yes.
Agreed.
And I think 100%. It just comes down to what you do. This has been great. Please remain on the line, Eric, because we have to make sure we do the download. Everybody, thanks for joining. Have I missed anything? I think Jeff Lavowski was here. Looks like the crew, Jay Williams, Robert Kogan, Duncan, a lot of stuff going back and forth in the chat. They were picking on you about steak. And so I know one thing you have to commit to me on, though, I'll just get it on the air here, is when I come to Philly and I do need to make a trip, is we're going to have to go get a Philly cheesesteak sandwich with a cheese, is it called Cheese Whiz?
With whiz, yeah. With his onions, whiz his cheese. Yeah, you got to say it right or they yell at you. Well, I got you.
I'll stand back and say, hey, my man's ordering. He'll tell me how to get it set up. But thanks, Eric, for joining us today. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Thanks, Sam.